Welcome to Find Your Tribe podcast. We're broadcasting from beautiful Portland, Oregon. My name is Annie Lavender Weller. I'm a member of the Turtle Mountain Band, the Chippewa Indians, and co-founder of the Leadership Lab, which is a career, academic, and transitional coaching nonprofit. I'm also a serial entrepreneur, author, and International Coaching Federation, ACC certified business coach and consultant. Welcome to my podcast, Find Your Tribe. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Find Your Tribe. I'm your host, Annie Weller. I apologize for my voice. I'm just getting over a cold, so I sound like, a sexy Kathleen Turner, kind of. I don't sound like an 11-year-old girl anymore.
You look better than Kathleen Turner now.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So today I have Ken Gordon. He's been a chef for over 40 years.
No, 40 exactly. Actually.
40
yes.
Exactly. He lived in Boston, San Francisco, Paris, and his native city is New York City, one of my favorite cities. I call it my sister city. He's currently the owner of Kenny and Zuke's Delicatessen, which celebrates its 10th anniversary on October 23rd. Oh, gosh, it's already October 20th. Yeah, yesterday.
Yes.
That's
We had
crazy.
balloons and everything.
Yeah, balloons and everything. Oh, welcome to Find Your Tribe.
Hi there.
I appreciate it so much. So, I've told you, the first question I ask everybody is, what does Find Your Tribe mean to you?
Well, until I looked on your website and actually saw what it did mean in general, I'm going, Find Your Tribe. Is that a Jewish thing, the tribe? You know, and then
I am Jewish and Native American.
And then I said, well, I'm not Native American, and I have no trouble finding Jews around. So what does it mean? I don't know what it means. I guess it means your community or your the group that you feel most affinity with, which for me, I guess, is chefs and food people and, the restaurant world and all that. I mean, like I said, March 23rd was the 40th anniversary of my first job in a restaurant back in Boston. So it's been a long time,
How have you survived the 40 years? And that's
years.
Pretty freaking amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of people burn out.
Yeah. What are you, my wife? She's always asking that question. How have I survived? The nice thing about the business, there's a lot of good things and bad things. And the nice thing about the business is that there are so many things you could be doing in it, and I teach and I cook and I've owned a lot of restaurants and travel and give demonstrations and all of that stuff. So there's no lack of things to move on to or whatever. And it's really, and the bottom line is, and this is what, with all the heartache of restaurants and as difficult as the job is, it's a lot of fun. And, I tell people that I can honestly say that in 40 years cooking, I have never had a boring day. And how many people can say that, And I've never worked in an office. One of my favorite expressions is Thoreau, and I paraphrase, he said, never take a job that you have to buy new clothes for. And it's true. I think that, I've never worked in an office. I've never had to wear a suit or a jacket and tie to go to work unless, no, I never have. And so it's always fun. It's it's really hard. It can be really frustrating. I mean, today, I got rid of one prep cook yesterday. My other prep cook didn't show up today. So who was in the kitchen? The fallback position is me. I do everything. So, and I have to. So I was in the office doing the books and the deposits and doling out the tips. And I was in the kitchen making specials and doing what he does. And I had to make a delivery because I'm one of the only people there who actually has a car. So, it was a really hard, long, frustrating day. And yet it was really fun because I don't get in the kitchen as much anymore. So it was really fun to get my hands dirty. And I managed to do, his 8 hours worth of work in 3 because I'm fast and it was better. So, there's that I can look at and go, that was a bitch, but it was really kind of fun,
So how were your parents restaurateurs?
No, God, no.
What did your parents do?
They aided restaurants, the ones that let them in.
What do you mean by that, let them in?
Well, they're both dead now, so I can say whatever I want. My dad was the kind of guy who, somewhat of a control freak, and so he'd walk into a restaurant, and we'd walk into a restaurant, and they'd show him to his table, and he'd go, and it could be the best table that ever existed in any restaurant anywhere, and he'll go, do you have another table? And the second table could be like, in the path of the swinging kitchen door. It doesn't matter. It's not he felt like if they were giving him this table, it was the worst table in the house, and they were taking advantage. The same thing with a hotel. Like, he'd go to a hotel to stay for a weekend or on a vacation, and doesn't matter what room they gave him, he'd wanted a different room. It was just that kind of thing. And then he would tell everybody, to order what they want, and then he'd if it was too expensive, he'd comment on it, and then of course everything that everybody else ordered was better than what he ordered. So that was my dad. My mom was a housewife for most of her life, and then when I went to college, she went to college for the first time and ended up getting her master's in art history and working as a full-time volunteer for Museum of Modern Art for 15 years as a researcher.
Awesome.
My dad was a publisher. He did really crappy magazines, Movie Mirror, Daytime TV, Teen Life, that sort of stuff, which was kind of fun for me because I got to go into his office and look at his photo archives, and actually interviewed a couple of people when I was in my teens just for fun. Jim Stafford, a country star, and Dave Mason from Traffic. I interviewed him.
That's pretty cool.
It was very cool.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
So, brothers, sisters?
A brother whose name we shall not mention because he's a dick, and my sister who I'm fairly close with, and they're both older.
And
so I'm the youngest child of two youngest children.
Of two youngest
Yeah, so
children.
It's like I've got spoiled genes like way back.
So, how did you start getting into the restaurant? What did you do? You went to college?
I went to college. I went to Beloit College in Wisconsin, class of 76, and I was a political science major pre-law during Watergate, which turned me right out of politics. And then I met a lawyer or two, and they were like the most boring people I've ever met in my life. So I wanted something that was kind of immediately satisfying. We moved to Boston. And got a job in a kitchen at what was then the minimum wage, which was $1.90 an hour. Mm-hmm. And I'd work 45 hours, take extraordinary abuse, just starting out, and I'd take home like $78 a week.
Yeah, well,
But we had a brownstone that was like 3 blocks from the public gardens in Boston. It was $280 a month. So, it's all pretty relative.
Yeah, I remember paying $425 for rent.
Right.
And being a housekeeper.
Right.
So, and making, I think I was $3.90.
Wow, that's
yeah,
that's getting up there.
That's getting up there. But I did get tips sometimes, which was nice. But at the same time, I started when I was really young.
Right.
So I was about 12, 13 when I started. Okay. I kind of fibbed about my age to get my jobs. So that started your restaurant career. How old were you?
I was 22.
22. And
I worked 3 years, worked my way through every decent restaurant in Boston at the time, and then I moved to San Francisco and worked around San Francisco for 3 years.
What brought you to San Francisco?
My at that time soon-to-be ex-wife was doing her finished her undergrad in Boston, did her master's at Berkeley, and ended up doing her PhD somewhere else, but I wasn't there. So,
okay. So you moved for love.
Exactly. And because the Bay Area was kind of cool. And so I worked for about 3 years there. And then I got recruited to be the head student teacher at a big cooking school in Paris. So I did that for a year and worked at a couple of starred restaurants in Paris. And then I was the chef on a hotel barge in Burgundy, on the Burgundy Canals, which was the best job I ever had because it paid $400 a week under the table and nowhere to spend it. So that paid for my third year in Paris.
So what was your favorite thing about San Francisco? Which was your favorite place to work?
Well, I only really worked in one place up in Walnut Creek right above San Francisco, and it was kind of a 3-story Guggenheim-like structure with ramps started by some lawyer with much more money than sense, and it was kind of a charcuterie catering place and wine shop, cheese shop, all of that restaurant. And that was kind of fun. Did that for about 3 years. But the nice thing was that was kind of the beginning of the Chez Panisse Mafia in Berkeley. So I actually took the place of a guy named Paul Bertoli, who went on to be the head chef at Chez Panisse and then opened his own restaurant, Oliveto, and now he runs a place called Fromani, which is kind of really expensive, very good cold cuts. But everybody kind of worked around, and like Mark Miller, who owned this very famous place called the 4th Street Grill in Berkeley, and he was a Chez Panisse alum, And he would need somebody to fill in as a line cook for Saturday night. So he'd give me a call, or he'd give somebody a call. So we all kind of worked around. There was only it seemed like there was only about 50 cooks in that whole area, and everybody kept bumping into each other.
So I've been part of, Portland restaurant, but only really as a diner. I've never worked in the kitchen other than a waitress and a bartender.
In the kitchen.
So I know you need a prep cook,
yes,
right?
Like tomorrow.
But I've always wanted to do that because I'm friends with Lisa from Mother's.
Oh, and we supply her bagels.
Yeah, and she's
a good friend.
She posts, hey, I need somebody to fill in just to come in as a sous chef or not a sous chef, or come and chop or fix
prep cook
or something like that. And I'm like, could I do that? Could I? My knife skills aren't that great.
Yeah.
I'll just be honest. I haven't cut off any digits, and from my understanding, that's a good or bad.
That's a plus. Do you know how to chop an onion?
I do.
Can you multiply that by 400?
Yes.
In 20 minutes?
No. I'll be honest. No.
No, I mean, it's there's all sorts of levels of experience and all sorts of levels of need in that business, other than it's constant, especially these days when the minimum wage is going up and up and up, and that's a good thing, I think, but it also plays havoc with, somebody's you start somebody at a little bit higher than minimum wage, and all of a sudden all the other people who've been working there for 3 years, they want to raise as well, and understandably, because it's all relative to the new people. And, it's getting harder to find anybody, let alone good people. It's getting hard to find a line cook or a prep cook if you need them, just because there's so many restaurants, there's so much competition for decent labor, and a lot of the people are going, I've been doing this, I'm making $13, $14 an hour, I have a college degree, I can't pay off my loans, I got to find another line of work. So it's a little bit of kind of, I don't know if it's crisis stage yet, but it's fast approaching. And this is true in every city I keep hearing about.
Yeah, I've noticed there's a lot of 401 signs in the restaurant industry, which is crazy. And then people are saying, well, I can't find a job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well.
3-4 years ago, I'd put an ad in Craigslist for a line cook. I would get 150 responses within 3 hours. Now, 4? And 2 of them have never worked in a restaurant before. Part of it is competition. Part of it is just people getting out of the business. There's not as many. I guess they closed that one cooking school, and there's another one now. But there's not as many kids coming out of those things because they were being lied to. They were being told, give us $30,000 a year and you'll leave here a chef. And it's like, no, you'll leave here a prep cook who has to get some experience, and they have to work 6-8 years before they become a chef. And they're going well, okay, how do I pay $120,000 or $100,000 in student loans when I'm making $13, $14 an hour, maybe?
Yeah. So, if I was going into cooking school, or if I was looking, don't go to cooking school. Don't. Do you need it? Because one of the things I do is I talk to people about their careers, and I'm like, do you really need to go back to school for that? Have you been doing that? What skills do you need? Can you be an intern instead of spending 3-4 years of BS? Yeah. Paying, $50,000 to $100,000 in student loans, or can you just get in there? I mean, what do you recommend?
Yes,
I can get on my soapbox. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I would say that cooking schools aren't necessarily a bad thing, but if I was going to do that, I would get some experience first, because the problem with cooking schools is you get in there and you make an omelet. Okay, that's great. You can know how to make an omelet once. But doing, like my line cooks on a Saturday, Sunday brunch, they do, 80 omelets or 60 omelets in 2 hours, and it's constantly going. One of my first jobs in Boston was making 300 omelets during a 2-hour lunch period on 2 hot plates. And I was really good at it. And that's not something you can come out of cooking school and do. That's something you need a few years' experience to do. My advice is always find a place that you like, the restaurant, you like the chef, and tell them you work for free. Whatever, do it for a year or 2. Become a sponge and soak up everything. When I started out, it was almost for free. It was $1.90 an hour. But I used to, I'd buy cases of oranges and practice my life skills. That was too. My knife skills, taking the peels off and chopping up into different shapes and learning how to use a knife. I would take home lids from plastic containers and saute pans and just practice flipping and flipping and flipping and flipping. Read every cookbook and every blog and just become a sponge and learn as much as you can. Then if you want to go to cooking school, at least you have a frame of reference. You can say, hey, I know how to do that, and I'm just going to refine my skills. When I was 25, I went to Paris I was a student teacher. It was a little different situation. But, I learned stuff at this school that I never had time while I was working to step back and learn how to make this sauce or learn how to, make the perfect whatever. And it was very valuable to me. And but I had worked 5 years, 6 years before that, so I knew how to talk to chefs. I knew the language. I knew, I knew my way around. The knife was part of my arm. It was, I've always kind of joked that if I ever lost one of my hands, I would want a kind of a thing where I can insert a whisk or a knife or a paddle or whatever, and that would become my appendage. So the thing is, if somebody has the feel for it, if he's meant to be a chef, if he's meant to be in that world, he's going to do well, given some effort and some soul and whatever. He's going to do well whether he goes to school, whether he slaves for somebody, whatever. If he's got the ambition and he's got the drive, he's going to make that happen. So that that kind of person, it doesn't really matter if they go to school or how they do it. They're gonna get it done.
So you've been in Portland for
26, almost 27 years.
27 years.
And now my daughter's like one of the top pastry chefs in Seattle.
But one of the things that I want to kind of explore with you is things have changed dramatically in regards to the culinary world. Oh, yes. Because I used to do PR and marketing, and so I had some celebrity chefs that I did PR for.
Okay.
It was...
Could they cook? I have a thing.
I've never.
I have a thing about celebrity chefs.
One of the things is I've never seen them cook. I know one of them can, and I don't want to... I had to sign non-disclosures and so forth. Okay. So, but being PR person, and you probably know some of the people that, that have come through, 3 very big ones. So it's really hard for me not to say names. Man, oh man. Oh, I've had to hold Coke mirrors. I've had to... Okay, apologize. I don't know how many times I've had to apologize to restaurant owners where the person has come into a restaurant and just drank and ate and not paid anything and just expected that to happen. Right. That's one of the things, like I've been seeing some posts lately of people that are restaurant critics not paying for their meals.
Yeah, that's not
bullshit.
Right. Yeah.
That means you're not a real restaurant critic. Right. And also, you shouldn't be telling people you're a restaurant critic when you walk in.
There almost aren't any restaurant critics anymore. I mean, there's,
they're
Yelp
fancy
and all that online
or whatever.
Shit.
Like,
nobody's really getting paid for doing restaurant.
So here I go on my soapbox again. But Portland, in regards to the culinary world, has really changed. Like
monthly.
Yeah, and it's just like, we have some top chefs now, which I think Top Chef at first, I was a little like, what is this? And now I think it's a good thing.
Oh, I hate it.
But now I'm like thinking, is it a good thing? Is it really making it? I hate fucking foam.
Well,
there's just certain things now that...
Yeah, I won't mention names either.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Find Your Tribe. This is part 1 of my interview with Ken Gordon. Next week will be part 2, where we continue talking about our love-hate relationship with foam, along with other chefy things. Have a great week. Find Your Tribe podcast is a conversation with guests addressing all aspects of what makes our businesses and personal lives unique. We will balance traditions with new methods, respecting the past while acknowledging the need to embrace new methods and technologies. Finding Your Tribe podcast uncovers the personalities behind the businesses, the leaders who paved the way, and the essential heart of what makes our tribes run. Please visit me at annieweller.com for more information.